And hi, everybody. Welcome to our Mandela stories. My name is HR. I'll be your host. Tonight, we're hosting our guest Wendy, who's going to tell us about her Mandela effect experience um, and how she's been dealing with it. Okay, Wendy, if you'd like to make an opening statement.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So, it was about 2016. That seems to be a pretty big consensus between most of us in the community. Is about the time that I had my awakening. It was pretty jarring once I realized that some of the things that just seemed like strange to me were actually things that other people were experiencing.
Right.
And once I reached out um, through a couple really great people on YouTube that I became friends with and started really sharing stories, it was just amazing to me um, how much our perceived world isn't as finite and fixed as what we grew up thinking that it was.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I had very similar experience. Um,
Yeah. So, really, the first effect that kind of shook me was the Chick-fil-A,
right.
where that K went. And then really some of the things that I had been interested in my whole life, like interested in our place in the universe and our ancestors and historically the way that people lived and the way that we've developed and changed from cave dwellers to hunter gatherers to um, industrial to this technology age has always fascinated me. And it seems like those things have fundamentally changed.
Uh,
And it's very unsettling. Like we're not even in the same place in the universe that we thought we were.
no, we're not. And that brings us to the first question.
Great.
Did you, how did you respond when you first experienced the Mandela effect? What was your first response?
Complete self doubt. It was the whole cognitive, like, shaking where you really are not sure of anything anymore. And if you remember nothing about your life anymore, or, kind of took for granted that, X was X and Y was Y. And here, um, just doubting that my original memory of it was right or wrong,
Right.
and just that confusion, the denial, it's like the stages of grief almost. And I'm not trying to make light of that because stages of grief are such an impactful thing.
Sure.
But it really was um, very disconcerting at first until I really did reach out and found so many people that I call friends now that were experiencing the exact same thing. And then it was a sense of not peace with it because I still get rattled by it, but a sense of having people there with me,
Right.
not being alone in it. Because it is a very isolating thing at first. You're afraid to talk to your family and your friends. Like people are going to think you're off your rocker. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I experienced most of that you're talking about. Was your first few weeks like most delving in what happened? You know.
Oh my gosh. Where I was up all night and just reading blogs and watching YouTube and just trying to find as many people that I felt were credible and that had kind of a common sense approach to something that has no common sense to it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it
Grounded
makes
people.
sense.
because there's a lot of the teenagers that are doing YouTube and they're quote unquote shook, and I wanted people that really were like foundationally sideways with this, that it really impacted them, and to really get into the meat of what is causing this. Why are we the ones that are experiencing this and other people aren't, or are not open to the awakening of it.
Right. And I don't know about your experience. It took me a good solid 2 weeks
Mm.
of research just to calm down enough
Right.
to realize I'm still on the planet. I mean, I'm in
Right.
the same place or the same universe, but I'm still on a planet.
Right. Exactly. And the problem with it's there's a reason why it's called going down the rabbit hole. I mean, you research the one thing that's like, that used to be red. Why is that green now?
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean, that King, like a big one for me was King Tut, and how there's
Yeah.
like some kind of weird bird and a cobra thing on is
Yeah, I know,
just
right?
so crazy. I studied Egyptian history and that just blew me away. So the farther down you go into it, and everyone has these incredibly intelligent hypotheses of what it could be, and I listen to them all and it's just fascinating, but it also almost makes it more difficult, because then you're like, okay, which one do I think? Which one do I believe it is, to just kind of settle myself down to have something concrete to hold on to?
Right. I know exactly what you mean. I've been a Mandela researcher for almost 2 years now.
Mm,
I started in 2016 as well, and
mhm.
um, I at first I think I made like 1,000 postings on blogs. I wrote everything I could possibly write. I was asking
Right.
all kinds of questions.
Yeah.
What could be the connection between us?
Right.
Was it eye color? Was it blood type? Was it where we live? Is it are we kin? Yeah,
Right. Right.
every possible conceivable connection I could think of, and then I realized that the connections are the fact that we all see it. That's what
Right.
brings us together. It's not
Yeah.
just whether it's a blood type or whether it's a this or that. The fact is we're here. We
Right.
realize it. And um, so, how did you feel when you realized that the changes were actually taking place within you, with around, like
Mhm.
on a larger scale, on a macro scale, the world itself, the
Yeah.
galaxy?
Right. Right.
How did you feel about that?
Um, I well, kind of trying to not be fearful, um, and looking at it like, well, it's happening. It's my reality.
Right.
It's many others' reality of what's happening. So I turned that into a positivity, because there's nothing I can do about it except be positive, a positive light in the world. And so I decided to just be intrigued by it.
Mm,
So instead of like obsessively coming from a place of fear, I've decided to be intrigued and to find it fascinating and add it to kind of the type of person that I am anyway, which is a person who, like I said, is fascinated by the sociology of humans and the anthropology of our ancestors. And I'm an advocate by trade, so I advocate for individuals,
right.
um, in my professional life. And so understanding how people work and why, that fueled me away from the fear and really helped to kind of ground me. Like, you know, instead of the attitude of, I guess there's nothing I can do about it, I really do try to look, well, the thing that I can do, what is the thing that I can do? I can't change it, but what can I do? And I can help to reassure others. So getting on that Facebook groups and, commenting on YouTubers,
Right.
and just really trying to be there for the other people who are freaked out and are, confused and worried and scared. Um, and it's been really amazing because I really feel these deep connections with these people whom I've never met, who most of them I've never even heard their voice. But you feel a connection to these people, um, because you have this kind of huge thing in your life that you share. Like you said, I agree with you completely. This is what binds us together, is that we're awake to this.
Yes, it definitely is a jarring experience,
Mm,
both spiritually and physically, because I mean the changes are
yes.
happening daily, and they're not just, I mean, I know a lot of people are dedicating their time to logo changes and brand changes,
Right.
but there are lots of changes taking place, that we're not even noticing. For instance, I noticed the other day that the Sagittarius arm, which was at the outer rim of the galaxy, is
Hmm.
is now right next to us, right next to
Yeah.
the Orion Spur, which is an amazing change. It
Right.
and I just noticed it the other day, and it's obviously a Mandela effect. And it's changes like that you happen across that uh, are life changing, because you
Right.
realize how small you are, but
Yeah.
that you're connected to this entire thing, and somebody, somehow, some way, you were chosen,
Right.
to see it, and so what I want to know is, I would like to get a feel for your personal experience with the Mandela effect. Have you had
Sure.
personal MEs?
Other than, um, well, I, it's strange. It's a feeling of, um, remembering events that have happened in my life that other people who were there and experienced it with me have no recollection of at all.
Wow.
So it's more than just like I worked at, whatever restaurant and their logo, is different, or if I my favorite place is Chick-fil-A and now there's the K is gone, or the
Right.
K is there and it wasn't there before.
Right.
Um, it's more of a, times where I feel like I'm different or my family's different, or these friends that we had these really impactful experiences and they don't have any recollection of them at all, or even events that other people say I was at and I have no memory of ever being there or doing that.
Right.
It's like, oh, in my memory I have a specific thing when my husband and I were first together and we met some friends for drinks, and then apparently we went bowling afterwards, and it literally is like a movie in my head. I remember everything about the place that we went. We had hamburgers and beer, and then there's black in my memory after that. Like the tape is just gone.
Hmm.
And I have zero recollection of doing anything. I didn't even know we did until my husband said, "Hey, remember when we did that?" I'm like, "What? We never went bowling." "Oh yeah, we did. We had a great time." Whatever. I'm like, "Was I a jerk? Because I don't remember it at all."
Yeah,
It's like, um, but it
yeah,
just is so bizarre to me to have this like chunk of time completely erased from my memory.
right, right,
Um, and it makes me wonder, has this happened before? Are there other things that people experienced with me that this me was not a part of?
right. Did you happen to check? Sometimes it helps to check photographs.
We didn't have any photos of that.
Okay, I was gonna say
Yeah,
sometimes if you had photographs, or you could go back through old photographs and
right.
see if you actually remember doing those things.
Exactly.
Or going to those places, because I've heard a lot of stories of people who say they don't remember doing any of it.
Yeah.
It's like
And
they're
I have one of those memories where I can remember when I was 3 years old. I remember, I have one of those memories. I can just remember every part of my life, but there's these huge gaps. But go ahead, I interrupted you. I apologize.
no, no, no. All I was gonna say was a lot of people have had this experience where they've went back and looked at old photographs and don't remember any of it. It's like they're looking
Hmm.
at a stranger. It has nothing
Right,
to do with them.
right.
And I've heard stories of people working at jobs and then going back to the place, and the building literally does not exist anymore. It's just gone.
Right.
And I I myself have never experienced that particular thing, but
Hmm.
I have experienced things like menus changing on restaurants
Oh, yeah.
with the shift, and
Hmm.
like my McDonald's. I keep talking about the dollar menu. It changes every major shift. It'll either disappear completely, and then they won't have any idea what I'm talking about, or it reappears, and then we're back in a reality that's similar to our own, enough to
Right.
have a dollar menu. um,
I wish that we could tag which reality somehow to know which one we're in. Like,
right,
oh, this is the one where,
yeah,
Barney's purple dinosaur, and no, this is the one where he's green,
right,
like
right.
some way that would, not that that's an Emmy, I've never heard, I just made that up,
Yeah,
but
I know. But when you were talking about the K on Chick-fil-A, I
Mm.
actually was there the day before the change, and I bought food.
Really?
Yeah, I bought food there with my daughter. And what happened was the following day, we were getting off the parkway and we pulling up, to make a turn onto the regular street.
Mm.
Look over, and there's a Chick-fil-A truck, and the K is there. And I'm going, what? There's no K on that. And
Wow.
I had to drive down and look, and guess what? There was a K.
Wow.
And that was the same day that I noticed the T was missing from Skechers.
I know, isn't that bizarre? What about the E missing from Febreze?
Yeah,
Oh, that one just wants me to go crazy. I can't handle that one.
it annoys me. And
Oh, it's so
another
annoying.
major thing that I saw was right as I was getting off the parkway, we have a Walmart,
Mm,
and there was no sign the day before. There was like no sign there. And
hmm.
today there was a sign there that looked like it had been there forever.
Yeah.
It was rusted, and
Hmm.
it looked like it had always been there,
Yeah.
but it wasn't.
And I really like what you said about, it's so much more than just, these logo changes. I look at it like, these are the, when you pick out clothes to wear for the day, and
Right,
it's an expression of how you feel that day or what you're going to be doing that day. I
right.
almost feel like these logo changes and these song lyric changes and movie script changes are really just kind of the outside of it.
Tip
the,
of the
the real truth, exactly, the tip of the iceberg. I think really what foundationally is going on is so intense and so mystifying that you know most people can't take too much of it. I know I can't. I know I had to walk away a couple weeks ago
yeah.
because there's a couple YouTube channels that I just love and I watch all the time, and I just had to turn it all off and walk away because it was just too much speculation, too much like changes constantly, and then
Right,
the questioning of it just got to me.
right.
But then, because fascinated by it, I kind of had to come back to it.
Well, because ultimately, you could try to walk away, but it's going to find you.
Right.
Sooner or later,
Absolutely.
something's going to happen. And I've heard stories. I mean, these are the kind of stories that scare people. And I don't want to scare anybody, but I mean,
Right.
I've heard stories of people that say their husbands or their wives are not the same people,
Oh, right.
or their children are not the same children, or
Yeah.
all of this, or they're missing children, or the children
Yeah.
are a different sex. They were
Right.
girls and now they're boys.
And those are just heartbreaking stories that these
Yeah.
people are just truly feeling this pain.
Well, imagine waking up and just the person next to you isn't the person you went to sleep with.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, who's this person? They don't even remember you. No
I,
idea.
and of course, if it's an upgrade, you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah, right. It's worth living with, but
Right.
but if it's a downgrade, it's like,
Right.
come on.
Yeah, but what if we're the one that's shifting? That's what I always think of.
Yeah.
What if I'm the downgrade?
Yeah, exactly.
you know? You
I,
don't ever look at it from that point of view.
oh, yes, I have. That way. I thought about it. I thought about that. I thought about the possibility that whole things can change. I've heard of people saying that whole neighborhoods disappeared, that they or that they actually went in, to they when they were working delivering food or whatever, and then it just is gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
What do you do about that? I mean, okay, it's gone. I'm not in that same reality, I guess. Right, moving on.
Right.
That's how you get after time. After a while, you just get to that point where you're like, okay, that's new. There's something you don't see every day. Now we have a holographic moon. Hey,
Right.
okay, moving on. I mean,
Right.
ultimately, there's nothing that we could actually do about it. I mean,
Right.
the bottom line is we just have to find a way to live with it, and
Right.
and to do that, and at the same time, try to help as many people as we can,
Yes. Yeah.
through these
Absolutely.
experiences, because I've heard of just horrendous experiences,
Yeah.
and it's at that moment they need somebody who's able to say to them, look, I know you're going through some stuff, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
It's not as bad as you think. I mean, well, it is as bad as you think, but it's okay that you
Yeah.
can't deal with it. You're still on a planet.
Right.
Don't
And I think
complain.
it's, to see the future of, we still have to wake up in the morning and still go to work and still take care of our family and our friends and
Yeah.
regardless of whether we're on the Orion Spur or the Sagittarius Arm or whether we're in the middle of the universe or the edge of it,
Right.
we still, the sun still, is there and
Yeah, well, there is an additional one and maybe a century later, but yeah, it's still there.
right. Exactly. But what I'm really, really fascinated about is how, the genetics of human beings. And I've been thinking um really a lot today actually about that, about how um genetically we really aren't that much different than we've ever been as human beings.
Right.
But yet there's a lot of disabilities that are coming out that are much more almost it seems to be genetic changes that are happening.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that plays into some kind of awakening or transitioning, and that the ME is all part of that, that there's some kind of shifting. I hear a lot of talk about the shifting, how we're shifting between
The universe, or
yeah, but I'm wondering if it's more of an internal shift, if that makes sense. If our actual what makes us up, our cells and our DNA, if that is what's shifting, and that if that's causing different energy or different vibrations, because we're electrical beings. And so, I don't know. It's just something that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about yet. But I know, I have children with autism.
Yeah.
And so, the structure of their brains just is completely different.
Right.
And, the way that the hemispheres of their brains communicate and the neural pathways are all different. And,
Right.
they're trying to find some genetic, linkages and, I don't know. I just think it's a fascinating shift that's happening with the amount of autism that is coming. And I don't want to talk. I know you're not. I brought it up, not you, but
I actually
you
I've heard of quite a few people that have children that are autistic at this point.
yeah, and the numbers are getting larger and larger constantly. Um, they keep raising the number of children born with autism. But, I'm just wondering if that isn't part of a shift that we're shifting. Obviously we're shifting from an industrial age into, the next age and even beyond with technology and AI and how quickly, our brains are having to adapt to our new environments.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if this isn't a byproduct of that the ME, isn't part of our brains trying to adapt to these changes that are happening in our environment.
It could it could definitely be. Also, you're dealing with a lot of um, socio-religious
Right,
situations where a lot of people believe that this is the end times. Uh,
right,
a lot of people believe that it's the people that are the new age, quote unquote, new age people. They
mm,
believe it's the quickening, the changing of spirit from one dimension to another. Uh,
right.
and in between you have all the rest that are talking
Hmm,
about the end of the world as well. You know,
sure.
it's a question of um, what do we believe? Each person has to
Right,
ask themselves. This is not a test that has a right or a wrong answer at this point. We have to each ask ourselves a question: what does this mean to us? And
right,
then we have to answer that question. And it's that question that's the driving force. When we're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, because as you said, we still have to get up and we still have to do the daily routine,
right.
and uh, this is in the back of our mind like a splinter.
Oh, that is such a great way to look at it, and I believe that complete. That's how it manifests in my life. Exactly, just this annoying, or like the itch in the back on your back that you can't reach.
Right, exactly. And it just keeps itching. It keeps in the back of your mind. It's there,
Yeah,
and it's there, and that you have to deal with it. And every waking moment that you're not dealing with the daily grind, you're addressing it.
right.
And on your
Exactly.
times you go online, or I have to research this, that, or the other thing. And I understand that completely because it's been a driving force for me, and I'm a natural researcher, so it's a constant thing for me. It's not my mind works 24 hours a day. I'm thinking of something.
Sure.
And it's the problem is that we can't define the question until we know what the question is. And um, with the ME, we don't really know what the question is because it changes day to day. I mean,
Right.
some people say, well, it's CERN, but is it? Or some people say, well, it's a quantum computer. Well, is it? You
Hmm.
to actually go and look at that and see for yourself what you believe. Because quite honestly, I've done the research, and it's still leaving me in a quandary because I
Right.
honestly, I mean, I can call what I do theories, but
Hmm.
I have no solid evidence to say it's anything at all at this point.
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
have 100 theories, but
Yeah.
they're theories, and I think that most of science has been that way, with Albert Einstein's theories, and they're finding out now that perhaps his theories weren't as solid as they might have thought they were, or um, other things that are happening in the world. We've noticed that there's a lot more paranormal activity going on in the world. Uh,
Yes.
a lot more people experiencing, uh, spaceship visitation. Uh,
Hmm.
I've actually interviewed people who've actually experienced that up close and personal, and got
Wow.
radiation burns for their troubles.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you find that any of this is true in your own experience?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't say that I'm a true empath, but I'm extremely empathetic. I have that. If you would tell me about an accident that you had where you were physically hurt, I would feel physical pain in my body. Um, that sympathetic connection where I have a pain reaction to others' pain. I'm also extremely hyper perceptive of people, um, and emotions, energies. Um, and I think, I have had a lot of trauma in my life, and I believe that, that extra sensitivity comes from just a survival, for me. I believe that's where it comes from in me. But in telling you that, that's just so that an understanding of where I feel that comes from. But it served me very well. But it also adds a little bit of um, freak out in my life, especially when um, I, I see things out of the corner of my eye, or have hear voices that aren't there, and not like I'm hearing voices, but that there's an actual voice that I look and respond to, and
Right.
there's not anybody there to have said what they said. Um, or things will go missing. I'll lay something down, leave the room, come back in, and it's not anywhere where I put it. I've experienced that since I was very little.
Right.
Premonitions of things that are going to happen, and they happen. And it's really interesting because I have a family member who has that sensitivity even more than I do.
Right.
But because of their religious beliefs, they've very much suppressed it, um, to where I think that they're just scared of it. And I've never been scared of it.
Mm.
I've always been fascinated by it. Um, it's off-putting when it happens, and maybe a little bit scary when it in the time that it happens.
Right.
Um, but I believe that whatever, if we're crossing um, realities, or crossing, into parallel universes, that it could be the shadows of what's happening. Um, and that as we're crossing through, kind of, when you were talking just a moment ago, I had a vision of a pond. And when you throw a pebble in the pond, you don't see the pebble anymore, but you see the rings, the concentric rings coming off of it.
Right.
Um, and I feel in some ways that, you know, things are getting chunked into chucked into our pond, and all these rings are crashing into each other, and these rings are just causing this rippling over the pond surface. And it feels like that to me. It feels like all of these things are the different things that are getting chucked into the pond, that impact each other, but we don't know why, or really even understand how it's happening. But I think that for those of us, we're experiencing, those. almost the impact shocks from those disturbances in the pond.
Right.
Does that any of that make any sense?
Oh, absolutely. I actually just posted a posting on a lot of groups. I don't know if I actually posted on your group, but I will. It's called Hacking Reality, and it was marching on to a solution of the Mandela effect, and it had to do with a video that I had actually watched on YouTube, and it made a whole lot of sense. I'll actually post that for you on your on.
Oh, great.
I know your group, so I'll post it on there so that you
Yeah.
can watch it. But yeah, I've had the same opinion that reality acts. I mean, it really acts like it's alive, and
Yes.
yeah, whenever you're watching it, it acts one way, but when you're not watching it, I suspect it might act a different way. It may act, but it acts a different way than if you were standing there watching it.
Right. Well, I think your very presence electrically and vibrationally
Changes things.
and it impacts, that event.
Right, right. The double slit experiment
Yes.
pretty much,
Absolutely.
uh, signifies that, and
Mm.
I think it was very true that when you witness it, it's that vibration or that energy, whatever you want to call it, it affects what you're watching.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it affects you too. And I think that, for people who are more sensitive to those vibrations and more sensitive to that energy, it could, I don't know. What do you think about the idea of it could actually push you out of one reality into another? Because,
well,
you
I,
know, I,
yeah,
uh,
I'm of the opinion that you are right about the vibrations, but I think it's on a larger scale, and I
mm,
think that it's. I mean, I hate to say this because I don't. This is just pure speculation,
mm,
but and I'll say that up front. But I feel like something is being activated,
yeah,
and we're being pushed out of one reality into another reality, and
mm,
it's you can tell when the energy changes, when you have experiences of that energy change, like your ears popping or ringing.
yeah,
You can feel like a buzzing on your skin, like it's electrified. um, Also, I think there are other ways to notice. I mean, the sky has been changing continuously, but
right,
if you look around, I've noticed that sometimes when we shift, it gets really quiet for a few minutes.
mm,
Then we shift, and then
mm,
it's like everything comes alive again, you know.
yeah,
And I wonder if some sort of energy is causing that ripple effect, to
right,
push us out of where we are somewhere else, you know.
right,
and
right,
and I don't know if it's folding space, if it's
mm,
these are questions.
right,
I have no idea if we're actually shifting through a dimensional nexus doorway, or if we're being folded, the whole entire planet's being folded and moved,
right,
to the next reality energetically. You know what I mean? Not the actual
yeah,
planet, but the
right,
people on the planet. Or
right,
if a certain level of people or a certain amount of people are being shifted at a time. It's hard to tell. And there's just no way to know this. And I've tried using devices to scan, for radio waves, for electrical energy waves, for graviton waves, um, and it's inconclusive. I mean,
yeah,
there are weird things, but how do you know it's not just normal and you don't know it? I mean,
right,
I'm not a geoengineer.
right,
I can't figure that out. I mean, as it is, I'm learning by book one book at a time, basically.
right. And it could be something that is so far out of our imagination that we haven't evolved into, and I mean not evolved in terms of like our bodies evolving, but our comprehension evolving
Right.
into even being able to comprehend what it could be. It's like, the old saying where dogs can see a different or what animal can see a different spectrum
Uh,
of.
do- Dogs can sense it. They can
Okay,
sense things, that are different.
yeah,
They say they can sense spirits. They can sense.
right. Cats too, yeah.
Yeah. And also, they say cats actually um, see ghosts. With
Mm-hmm. Right,
you know, but again, it's all speculation because we just
right,
don't know enough. I mean, our understandings. We're not, uh, you know, theoretical physicists. We're not
yeah.
geoengineers. We're not,
Right,
all this. I mean, we learn, and some of us have the ability to learn very quickly, but still, we're lacking so much, that it's just hard to know. And we can only take it one day at a time, um,
right,
one book at a time, one
yeah,
idea at a time, and challenge that idea and see if it lives up to our what
yeah.
we see. And then if it does, then we can share it. But that's about as far as we can go. I mean, ultimately, unless we get big grants from somewhere, and
Right,
then you have to question, why are they giving you big grants?
right. But I think in a way, all those scientists and all the people at CERN and all the people who are the theoretical physicists and that think up all these like string theory and all
Yeah.
of this, I'm wondering if we aren't actually freer to come up with the absurd, quote unquote, absurd ideas where they're more grounded in what they know now that is reality or what they understand to be reality. But because we don't have that classical training in those ideas, that we can kind of be more out of the box in our theories and our thought processes of how we perceive reality.
Well, that's
um
that's very possible. And here, the other thing is, when dealing with science, you have to understand everything has to do with publishing. They
oh,
have to
sure.
publish their ideas, and they get grants, and the grants only come if they can publish ideas.
Right,
And mainly they have to stay within the mainstream of science. They're not
right.
allowed to take leaps of ideas.
Because we all know what happens to people like that. I mean, you look at Tesla and his life and how it ended and all the things that happened. um he was someone who definitely thought outside
The box.
of
Yeah,
where Einstein was much more concrete. That's not the right word. He
yeah,
was much more grounded in kind of already approved and researched ideas, even though he was taking it further than most people had.
right.
It's
Um,
a dangerous thing to think differently in this world for sure.
Tesla ended up alone and broke,
Yes. Yes, it did.
and yet all his ideas were taken right after he
Yes,
died.
they were.
Most of them were applied, and believe it or not, a lot of our today's technology can be traced back to his ideas.
Absolutely. That is such a fascinating story.
It's true. I mean, even
Hmm.
cellular phones, that
Yep.
was his idea, because he was talking about transmitting energy wirelessly.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that was the basis for cellular devices.
Right.
You know, the internet. I mean, that was all his toy. X-rays, laser,
Mm,
all of that was
yeah.
his. He had actually
And
done it.
And just think, all of those things are unseen. We can't see radio waves. We can't see with our,
Right.
naked eyes, but yet they pass through our bodies and they affect our, I know that I am very sensitive to electromagnetic fields.
Oh yeah.
Um, I am super hyper sensitive to them.
Yeah.
Um, and so I can walk into a space and know immediately, like, I'm humming, like there's something wrong,
Something's not right
Um,
here. Yeah, I got to get out of here.
yeah,
It,
my skin's crawling. I need out. Like, this is
can't
not
even,
good for me.
yeah, I can't even stick a cellular phone next to my head without feeling that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's how everything around us is. And they're putting up
Yeah.
the 5G,
Oh,
which
that's
is
gonna be
so crazy. And it makes me wonder if that isn't part of it too, that we're fundamentally changing the atmosphere.
right.
We're filling the atmosphere with shock waves of
Right.
energy. And it just makes me wonder if that doesn't, mess up a lot or change a lot of things, or the way that our brains process information, to
Right.
how our heart, I mean, an electrical current can stop a heart,
Yeah.
even though we're electrical beings. It just is.
Well, then you have to ask yourself a couple questions. And these are hypothetical. Of course, you understand, wink,
Mm,
wink. Uh,
right.
that we are being assailed by smart dust, allegedly. We're being
Right.
assailed by, nanotechnology,
Yes.
allegedly. We're being, you know, um, already changed on the inside by these nano bots.
Mm,
And, the question is, why are they rushing 5G into service without testing it on human beings? They don't know what the effect of it is on human beings, or they do know and they're not telling anyone, and that's all, obviously we don't know that to be true allegedly, but wink,
right.
wink, you know,
Mm,
we sort of do. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the question is, why are they rushing it into production now? Why? There
Right.
has to be a reason. And the I've asked this question many times. I've written posts about it. Um, and my honest opinion, and it's an opinion,
Yeah.
is that I think that they'll be able to control the nanobots directly in our system with this 5G technology. And
Wow.
that might give them some more control over us, at
Hmm.
least over if not us, at least over the ones that don't see the Mandela effect. Uh,
Right.
and then you have to ask, well, you know, um, have they been trying to use mind control technology for the last 40, 50 years? And the answer
Yeah.
is they've had it, and,
Yes.
and they've used different kinds of propaganda, different kinds of,
Yes.
I mean, when you go back to the 60s, obviously Timothy Leary, the acid, LSD,
Right. LSD. All those poor people. Oh, that breaks my heart.
all of that was the CIA,
Yeah.
at least that's what we're told.
Right.
So the question is it continuing? Is it progressing through the black projects? And the answer is we don't know.
Right.
But if they've done it before, so and they gain a great power over people,
Yes.
then do you think they'll use it now? And the
Well,
answer,
yeah.
I was going to say, the answer is probably.
Yeah. I think that, that leads to the bigger question of um, who is behind, all of this. I mean, I think that, I've done a lot of research on the New World Order and all of those things. And
State.
deep state and right. And it really isn't that far out of feasibility in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, as scary as the is, and how, you know, you kind of try to talk yourself out of seeing, you know, the logic behind, you know,
Right.
these things. But it's part of human nature to understand who, what, when, where, why, right? That's kind of how we're created, to question our reality, to question where we are in this world, and
And
um,
everybody around us.
exactly. And but yet we're also, you know, led, if we have a faith, you know, I'm a Christian,
Me too.
um, you know, that I'm led to have faith and to believe in something that I don't have anything other than what my internal moral compass, or my heart, you know, my soul, what my soul feels,
Right.
and what speaks to my soul and speaks to my peace and speaks to my um, I don't know, I guess my heart, you know. Um, but there's other people out there that have different agendas, and
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I guess it comes down to, what do you want to believe? What helps you to get through the day by,
Exactly. Exactly.
you know?
Do you think that the Mandela effect is a side effect of something, or is it being directly caused by
Ooh,
something?
isn't that the question?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. In a strange way, you know how I had brought up autism earlier, and the exact same question is what the autism community is asking of doctors and of ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is autism, you know, related to things that are happening in our environment, or
Right.
is it an internal genetic evolution? Is it, you know, what is the cause of it? Is it a symptom, or is it, you know, of something else that's being done and it's the negative consequence to whatever else is happening? Or is it the purpose in and of itself? You
Right.
know, is it being directed so that more people will have autism, so that, you know, other events will come from that?
Yeah.
And I feel very conflicted about it, just as I do for the ME, because I don't, there's no possible way to know how to answer that, because it could be both. It could be, oh, we accidentally did this. Well, now we can use it and we can manipulate it, and then we can, you know,
Yeah.
get what we want out of it from, you know, this happening.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think that the, in the absence of having that answer, um, you know, really focusing and the whole idea of manifesting, you know, trying to manifest a spot of peace and of love and of kindness in amongst all of those things, and compassion and patience, and, you know, all of the things that are very human. Um,
Right.
I see as one of the biggest impacts on my life since I became aware are those things. I have felt patience and kindness and love from a community of people. Um, and I didn't even know I was missing that. I didn't know I was missing my village. And
Right.
I feel that this is my village. You know, I can post on the Facebook group that I adore, and go like, guys, guess what just happened? This is so crazy, you know, and everyone, you know, like, just responds with, you know, such support. And I think that that is the unintended consequence, that whoever or whatever has created this, or it's a byproduct of something else, the
Right.
unintended consequence of that, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
is that we have bound together and we have come together and we're stronger together. And whatever it is that comes next, I feel like we already have such a great foundation of questioning and supporting each other, that will be hopefully hopefully we'll be able to weather through whatever is coming, and that we can just be there for each other.
Right. I absolutely agree with you. It's, definitely created a sense of community. Um, it's of course, like any families, we squabble a bit, but
Sure.
ultimately, I think we're stronger as a group than we were as our just singular selves.
Right.
And I think that, ultimately, we're going to have to keep pushing forward, regardless of whether we actually solve the issue or not, just for our own peace of mind, you know,
Yes.
because ultimately that's, in the end, I think that's all we're going to get out of it is peace of mind. Um,
Exactly.
and I, I I think that everything comes in a circle. Um, the world seems to operate that way. That it works. Things come back around. You know,
Yeah.
uh, understandings come back around. Personalities come back around. They just in different people, but the same kind of people. You know what I mean? Like there,
Yeah.
there will be another Einstein. There will be another, uh, you know, Tesla. Ultimately, it's just a matter of when. And
Right.
I think these people will be the people that ultimately, if they see the truth, will be able to find the solutions and the reasons why these things are occurring if they're allowed. And I say that with the big, quotation marks. If they're allowed
Right.
to find the solution, which
Yeah.
which we can't assume. You know,
Right.
um,
Well, my fear is that, because the Mandela effect has kind of become a mainstream concept now, that
yeah,
there are, it's not just us kind of going, what the heck is going on? It's actually, becoming a way to make profit, where they're making a Mandela movie and they're,
I've seen that.
it's
PayPal buttons and
right, exactly. Which, hey, if people, that's a whole nother, thing. But
that's for
um,
another time. But
right. But for me, my fear is that if it wasn't already what we had talked about, manipulated by some group or person or thing,
right,
or something outside of our even imagination of what it is,
right,
um, if it isn't, it very well could become that, where people almost like it becomes a psyop that we created and then somebody else starts pulling the strings on.
right.
Um, so if that hasn't already happened, I am fearful for our community for that.
Well,
Um,
I have seen some things changing. For instance, I have a friend. Her name is Candace, and
mm,
she has a group, Wiki Warriors, where they're trying to keep the Mandela effect links open in the wiki, um, thing, because what
mm,
happens is um, they change it to false memories.
uh,
We change it back to the Mandela effect. 15 minutes later, they change it back to false memories again,
uh,
and they have bots that are doing this.
yeah.
Literally 15 minutes later. So
Wow.
the big problem. She's trying to combat that problem. To
Yeah.
keep disinformation from happening. But,
Right.
but as you said, other people are getting involved, and
Yes.
those people have questionable motives.
Well, and I'm afraid that some of these trolls that have come in, that there have been trolls that actually at the beginning, when I first, became involved and was at kind of the beginning of a very specific Facebook group that I adore, so much that, I mean, it was ripped apart, and it was so sad and so just hurtful and terrible. And luckily, everyone was able to, the true peaceful people were able to like rally back together, and
Right.
we were able to come back together again. But I truly feel that those types of negative energies, whether it's a bot or whether it's paid people or just the soulless ones, that um, are come in and purposefully create chaos. We don't know who those people are on the other end. We don't know, and a lot of us share some really personal, just part of ourselves. We give our energy into it,
Right.
and it just makes me nervous that, like what I had said, like it could potentially become, um, used for negative purposes. I think that that's why it's so important that we always just have an awareness. We always need to be aware of who we're talking to. Remember that, you and I are speaking, and
Right.
I've seen your name around, and we've talked, on posts before,
Right.
but we don't know each other,
No.
And
No.
I think that it's really, we always need to keep that in mind, that while we are sharing a very unique experience with
Right.
others, that we truly don't know who they are.
Right.
We have to be vigilant, to make sure that we keep this sacred, because it is so impactful, and it's such a big part of so many of our lives, and it kind of explains this unsettled feeling that we have so often. And
Right.
it just gives us some peace to know that even if we don't know the who, what, when, where, why of it, we know that it's happening, and
Exactly.
we need to guard that, and keep it from being torn apart by this chaos energy. Just you know,
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Definitely discernment is needed,
yes,
and we have to be questioning, and when these things occur, we have to be able to see it with open eyes, and not get caught up in the moment, but actually
right,
see from outside of it, and understand the bigger picture, because there is a bigger picture.
yeah,
With the Mandela effect, as in all things dealing with the deep state or whatever the group is. Um, I I'm really grateful that you were able to come on tonight and talk in such short notice,
oh, absolutely,
about your experience, because it's important that people understand, that people hear this, that they know that there's other people that are experiencing the same thing,
absolutely,
and that they're not alone. You know,
for
um,
sure.
so I want to thank you, and thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back with a another episode soon.
Great. Thank you so much. At any time, you're welcome to get a hold of me anytime.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. Have a great night,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.